Hello there. So we were gonna do some shrines this week, but not even 10 minutes after I said, we once wrong warped a bear and we'll do it again if we gotta. We looked into it and Nintendo tried really hard to patch it and keep us from wrong warping mounts. They removed the fog commonly used for mount wrong warps, made respawn coordinates update down here, and made all the front fogs here despawn Link and respawn him back at the entrance. Also, moon jumps are gone, but that's whatever. Nintendo trying to tell me that I can't wrong warp? So you know what? Did it anyways! Roll the intro! Alright, before we can get into the juicy wrong warps, we gotta understand how respawning works. And the plants in the lab have been working. Beep. So the plants stopped doing shrines and joined a coven apparently. Didn't even give 2 weeks notice or nothing. So, explanations are gonna be short I guess, because they're just over there teleporting literally everything that moves. So, who's ready to do some horse magic? Anywho, TM, how do respawn coordinates work? Well, in a game where you could drown yourself at a moment's notice, it's always keeping track of what should be Link's respawn coordinates when you're walking on valid ground. So, in the event you decide to yeet yourself into a lake or an abyss, it knows where to put you back. For example, a pretty extreme example, but an example. Stand on a sky island, fly really far away and void out, or drown. You'll appear back on that sky island because you did not touch any valid ground between here and there. In Breath of the Wild, we had moon jumps which prevented respawn coordinates from updating because of the whole horse not horse horse state. Horse. We may not have moon jumps anymore, but something was added that we can abuse. Ultra Hand and a boatload of dynamic objects. If you're flying through the air without a care in the world, jump down and drown, it'd be stupid to try and put you back on that vehicle that may or may not even exist. Unnecessary things to track. So coordinates just don't update on dynamic objects. So instead of moon jumps, we have flying machines. You gotta work smarter, not smarter. Now performing the wrong warp, the principle is the same. Don't change respawn coordinates and void out on a horse that has also not changed its respawn coordinates. But the setup, it's not anywhere near as simple as walking a horse into a void. Bring your horse over to Aldor Foothills here near Applebee's. No idea how it survived the purge. Maybe it's a relative of Applebee's. IHOP? Dine Brands, look it up. Anywho, anywhere around here is fine, but this section right here has a good amount of flat ground to work with. Next, go to where you want to wrong warp and build a flying machine with some good surface area on it. Surface area is important, and it'll make your life 1,000 times easier. Or don't, use a hover cycle. You will regret it, and I'll laugh. I've got popcorn ready. We used our patented flying cart, a Flart Mark 1. Wait, this is the 4th version. Flart Mark 4. Fly all the way back to your horse, and this is extremely important. Do not touch the ground. Floor is lava rules. One toe is enough to ruin everything. Land on your horse. Don't land on your horse. Land by your horse, not on your horse. We're gonna bust out a couple of things here, all while staying on the cart. Again, don't touch grass. 2 carts, a stake. Steak. And a barricade, Mark 3, now for horses. Barricades needs a frost emitter, a cage. You can get the cage from this fort down here. And a big battery. Battery not required, but it makes life easier. Also 2 hoverstones. Now your horse doesn't require the harness here, but it makes life 1,000,000 times easier, as with the harness, horses aren't afraid of Ultra Hand. Stake the harness as far from the horse as possible. Activate the cage and place it above the horse like one of those hairdryer things you see in the movies. And salons, I guess. With the horse frozen, get the horse onto the 2 carts by fusing them below it. Just gotta scoop it up. Horses do not like being placed on dynamic objects and freak out and run. Hence the ice. And the stake. And the cage. Letting them break free is just incredibly frustrating. Now slam the cage down, fuse it to the bottom. Also remove the stake at some point. Rotate the cage and scoop the horse inside. You want the cage to be upside down. Remove the frost emitter. Horses are not immune to ice. They are genetically inferior to bears in every way. Probably. Now we're gonna never-ending story to ourselves upwards and towards the Korok Forest, 1 rocket at a time. When you get close to land, I recommend switching over to using a secondary hoverstone and slow moving with Ultra Hand, or use a rocket and rewind to snatch it up. Once it is inside the void and not moving is important, jump in and mount it. If the scoop is moving, the horse can freak out and it's not really safe to mount the horse. But we void out and the process begins. It gets the current respawn coordinates, puts Link over on him. Oh, Link's on a horse. Better go ahead and move that too. don't want to put the horse in purgatory. Again. Now that we know how to do the trick, what can we do with it? Well, the first place we went was the water temple. If you try to go to the water temple, or anywhere in the sky actually, the horse unloads around an altitude of 900-ish. They really don't want us to put a horse anywhere up here. Why? Well, the most magical of reasons. When a horse loads into an area it wasn't designed to be in, bypassing whatever check that normally despawns it, it doesn't load in correctly. It's missing something. In the transition, it lost whatever makes horse horse. The entity itself is here, but its mind is gone. We can't mount it, whistling does nothing, it doesn't respond to pain. Well, it does, by dying. Effects don't occur on it properly, but she is real sparkly though. And we can just carry it in bubbles. That's not important or even relevant. I just thought it was amusing. Look at it go, it's just splashing around like a potato in soup. Now it doesn't fight back, so we can put rockets on the back of the harness to push it. Or we can move it around with a horse truck. We'll call it a huck. Mark 1, patent it. Now as many of you know, and the reason why this whole thing is significant, horses are not allowed in the desert. They just despawn if you try to put one into the desert. The same happens when you try to go to the sky, as you saw before. In Breath of the Wild, if we wrong warped a horse into the desert, it just despawned. But as we saw with the Water Temple, Tears of the Kingdom wrong warping to areas horses aren't supposed to be in is different. Wrong warping into the Lightning Temple, the horse gets to stay. Throw it out into the sand, perfectly fine. I mean, as fine as this horse is going to be. We initially focused on temple wrong warps just in case they were special. Ultimately, not special, but informative. Just because we can't ride them though, doesn't mean we can't take this horse where no horse has ever gone before. The extremely forbidden Gerudo Town, in the heart of No Horse Land. Rocket it all the way across the desert to Gerudo Town. Scooping up this horse is easy because it doesn't fight back. So to get it over the air wall that blocks the entrance, caged it up, flew it on over, dumped it into Gerudo Town, and finally rocketed it on over to Riju. Really slowly and all over this room because it turns out it's really hard to precisely position a horse with rockets. But Riju, as an apology for everything that I'm likely going to do to this town in this game, I once again have brought you a gift. But instead of a pet, I've brought you a delicacy from foreign lands. Enjoy. Now I know the moment that I mentioned wrong warps, you thought of the depths. We did too. What better place to do dark rituals than underground? Well, I set up the wrong warp, flew all the way out of the depths, did the wrong warp, no horse. In fact, the horse wasn't even in the overworld anymore. Doing the wrong warp this way, I guess puts the horse so far away from where it's intended to be that as a failsafe, it just puts the horse back in the stable. Wrong warping a horse into the stable, I guess, is pretty cool though. I even tried to do it from the fire temple, just in case temples were different. The trip was annoying, and no difference. Right into the stable. But this leads to more testing to understand what is actually happening on the transition to the depths. Grew me a new set of lab plants and everything, Mark II or something, whatever. Now every single chasm in this game has a point where the world state changes from overworld to the depths, unloading everything that is not flagged for both sides, such as dragons, falling tablets, machines, and ground that Link can be standing on. Now this isn't just complete speculation, we can demonstrate that these entities are flagged as overworld or depths, and why taking overworld entities to the depths will be such a massive ordeal. I had aimed to abuse the respawn system to get my horse into the depths while I was still not in the depths, and then go to the depths. So in theory, it should respawn there when I cross over, right? Heh, I wish. By going to Tobio's Chasm with my horse that definitely didn't want to go there, we set up a floating cage with a hover stone, tilted at an angle so whenever we slip our horse in, it'll have a place to run out whenever it gets to the ground. And we let it fall down really slowly. Safety first. Now it'll hit the ground and because it's at an angle should tip the horse out and the horse goes running down the chasm. This provides a demonstration for us that entities that are flagged as overworld can in fact enter the depths itself. From here we try to run really far away to unload everything without just outright warping or saving, just in case things are different. Entering the depths and running up the chasm, when I returned, no horse, but the indicator is still here. This is 100% the horse's respawn coordinates. Lifting myself above Z48, the point of loading for this area, switching to the overworld state, the horse reappears down there just fine, because it loaded the overworld entities. Crossing back into the depths removes the horse. Going back, reappears. This demonstrates that there is something keeping track of to load the depths or the overworld entities, and that the horse, bear, stall horse, whatever, is flagged in some way to only exist in one of these world states, the one it was originally spawned in. If the entity was not flagged for this in any way, this would not be the outcome. Additional demonstrations! Items you summon are flagged for the realm or world state that they are spawned in. So I came to Z48, made me a nice big platform that I could step up and down on, spawn above the threshold in the overworld, crossing into the depths unloads it. Load object in the depths, flagged as the depths, and removed when crossing into the overworld. So to get overworld entities into the depths, one of a few glitches will need to be found. The first would be the ability to bypass the world change state here. If we can skip that switch, then we can ride our horse down into the depths while still being in the quote-unquote overworld. The second option would be to change the world state for an entity, like a horse being flagged for both or switching it from, say, overworld to depths to avoid the purge. Now this is actually possible by ultra-handing something through the transition and allows it to persist, but it shows that it persists and not that the actual state changes. For example, I took this stone, spawned it in the overworld, and ultra-handed walked it down to the depths, quote-unquote depths. And then I went back to the overworld. Didn't despawn, so that means it was an overworld entity, and the moment I re-entered back into the depths, it despawned. And no, ultra-handing the harness and walking through one of these planes does not do anything at all, it still despawns the horse. And having it being rewound whenever you walk through doesn't do anything because the object is deleted and rewind breaks. The third option is kind of obscure, but being able to store an entity into auto-build and summon it, marking it for the other world state whenever it is summoned, as demonstrated a couple seconds ago with hoverstones. Now in Breath of the Wild, we could use a memory editor and an emulator to successfully show that we could spawn entities by simply changing an item ID. And I suspect that auto-build simply is pointing towards a file or object or item ID in a similar means, and in theory could spawn any entity if we could somehow save it in a build. So I guess I know what we need to work on. After all, I got bears to get down there. After shrines, lab plants really need to get ahead on shrines before we can do that kind of fun. So, everybody, be free, wrong warp some horses to stupid places.